Think Trump's election victory was about campaign spending? Think again. The real story lies in his mastery of AI-driven content platforms. I'm going to show you the exact technological system that helped him reach millions of voters while traditional media lost its influence. This changes everything that we thought we knew about political campaigns. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist, and I'm building the AI Capitalist channel to help leaders and thinkers like you navigate the world of intelligent machines. And these cognitive machines are wrecking the mainstream media. Top-heavy networks like CNN and MSNBC struggle with programming decisions made by small teams of executives, and they've paid a heavy price. During the election, CNN's viewership dropped by nearly 50% compared to 4 years ago. That, despite massive production budgets and staff. Meanwhile, platforms like YouTube and Spotify deploy sophisticated algorithms that analyze billions of user interactions to match content with interested viewers. Now, Donald Trump was able to clobber Kamala Harris, even though Harris had well over twice Trump's campaign budget. And he did it by skillfully hacking the algorithm to target a crucial demographic. The 2024 US election was a game changer for podcasts. They strongly outpaced traditional media in terms of audience engagement, especially among younger voters. A great example of this shift is Donald Trump's appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, which racked up over 100 million downloads across platforms. And that's more than double the viewers who tuned into CNN for the first debate between Trump and Biden. In the recent election, Donald Trump's long podcast interviews help him to connect with young male voters, giving him a boost in what many are calling the bro vote among guys aged 18 to 44. On the flip side, Kamala Harris also joined the podcast scene, albeit a bit later and perhaps a little hesitantly. She responded to Trump's strong efforts to capture those podcast-loving listeners by going on some podcasts of her own. She made a guest appearance on popular shows like Call Her Daddy and The Breakfast Club and Brene Brown's Unlocking Us. And that's where she shared her thoughts in shorter, engaging segments. Let's take a closer look at the numbers to really understand not just how appealing podcasts are, but also how they played a role in shaping the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Did you know that around 31% of people prefer watching podcasts on YouTube instead of listening on platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts? To get a better idea of their overall reach, I've doubled the YouTube views to estimate the total downloads. Now, these figures, by the way, were gathered by Donald Trump's podcast tour and Kamala Harris's podcast tour. Casting aside the likely overlap in audiences, Donald Trump's podcast tour is likely to have generated about 25 times more viewers than Kamala Harris, and half of that is attributable to the Joe Rogan Experience. On a broader scale, the average episode of the Joe Rogan Experience attracts around 11 million downloads, while CNN's primetime shows pull in a measly 400,000 viewers, most of whom aren't even within the coveted 25 to 54 age range that advertisers are looking for. Plus, it's just Joe and his assistant, Jamie, and his guest booker putting in a few hours each week to create a handful of episodes. In contrast, CNN has a whole team working tirelessly around the clock for their primetime programming. Podcasts have really taken off with younger audiences, and they're connecting in ways that traditional media just miss. Trust in mainstream media has been shaky for a long time, especially after the confusing messages that we received during the rapid disease spread in 2020. On the flip side, there have been plenty of instances where news that might be deleterious to those in power was deliberately downplayed by the mainstream media. Many young people are turning to podcasts because they appreciate the independence, the authenticity, and the reliability that these shows offer. For many, podcasts just feel more trustworthy than their mainstream counterparts. Of course, whether that's the case can vary from show to show and from episode to episode, but it's definitely a trend worth noting. Isn't it interesting that Kamala Harris had the chance to join Joe Rogan on his podcast, but chose not to? A rumor has it that she didn't want to travel to his studio or spend more than 45 minutes chatting, whereas JRE episodes typically run for 2 to 3 hours. The difference in downloads between Trump and Harris during their campaigns really highlights how, first, choosing the right podcast matters, and secondly, Trump has a knack for attracting larger audiences than Harris. And let's not forget that Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, was also featured on several of those popular podcasts, bringing in some impressive download numbers himself. In October of 2024, when the election frenzy hit its peak, CNN primetime averaged around 830,000 viewers per episode. Now, doing the math, it would take CNN an entire year to reach the 300 million viewers that Trump achieved by appearing on just 10 podcasts. A recent survey provided some insights into Joe Rogan's audience demographics, although it was based on a small group of British respondents. Not surprisingly, the majority are men aged 18 to 54, and this helps explain how Trump's podcasting success, along with various other well-known factors, was the key to winning over the bro vote of men aged 18 to 44. So is this just a passing fad, or are we on the verge of a whole new media wave? Now, according to Edison Research, podcast consumption has been climbing steadily for nearly 2 decades, starting from humble beginnings. As of now, nearly half of all Americans and Australians are tuning into podcasts at least once a month, with similar patterns emerging in other English-speaking countries. Although the podcast industry has seen rapid growth, experts believe that we're still in the early stages, with projections suggesting it could expand at a remarkable compound annual growth rate of 27.8% through 2032. Now, you might think about starting a podcast to dive into this market, but brace yourself. 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. It's tough, and you're going to need to churn out around 100 or more episodes just to gain some traction. I'm finding the same thing with AI Capitalist on YouTube, which now I'm making my 100th episode. I'm just starting to see that traction and the interest in the channel. So let's get some traction. Hit the like button and let the algorithm know that this is what you want to see. Together, we can take down the establishment and we can liberate the world through spreading capitalism. One of the main ways that podcasting and social media channels like this are wiping out the system is through their ease of use. Here are some questions that you might ask a typical potential podcaster. Do you have a studio? You don't really need a fancy studio. I'm working out of my office here. You can easily produce high-quality podcasts right from the comfort of your home with just a few $100 worth of equipment. Why spend a fortune on a centralized studio when you can connect with hosts and guests from all corners of the globe? Embrace the freedom of home production and make your podcasting dreams a reality. Okay, what about broadcaster training? It's actually about collaborating with talented creators who truly shine in their craft. Now, they need to be given the space to express themselves freely. The goal isn't to turn everyone into cookie-cutter podcasts who sound like those monotonous radio personalities. Instead, it's about celebrating relatable and authentic voices that resonate with listeners. Now, if you've ever done painting, I've done some painting in my life, and there's a saying that you could take 100 classes in painting, or you could paint 100 paintings. By the end of that, if you've painted 100 paintings, your paintings are going to be massively better than someone who's just taken classes on it, even though they may have officially been trained in the ins and outs of creating art. And the same goes with the art of podcasting. I feel like I'm improving my delivery and finding topics you want to talk about and coming up with new insights all the time. And they're getting better and better, not because I'm reading books about making episodes, but because I'm interacting with you and I'm just getting practice and putting in the reps to do it. Okay, so what about production? So are you talking about adding some intro and outro music, incorporating sound effects, cleaning up bloopers? Maybe even a few ads, balancing the sound levels? Nope, no worries. There are awesome tools out there for just $20 a month. And I have someone I work with through Fiverr who can edit an episode for $10. It's a great setup. The ease of setup is causing the collapse of the former giants of mainstream media, much like what happened with newspapers when cable television became a thing. And yes, I'm old enough to remember a time before cable. I'm just at the end of the Joe Rogan demographic there. The rapid decline of traditional media has sparked a significant cost-cutting measures across major networks. CNN plans substantial restructuring under CEO Mark Thompson, production staff reductions forcing correspondents to take on expanded roles. Top talent like Jake Tapper and Wolf Blitzer have been denied raises in the middle of these financial struggles. And Chris Wallace has confirmed his departure from the network. CNN's election night viewership plummeted to 5.1 million, down from 10 million in 2020. Meanwhile, Comcast is moving to spin off its cable channels, including MSNBC, into a new entity dubbed SpinCo, where billionaires with progressive credentials have expressed interest in acquiring MSNBC. Comcast denies any immediate plans for sale. The network faces its own challenges, with their average daily viewership dropping 30% since Election Day. AI-driven content platforms are a revolution in the struggle to figure out what's actually going on out there, what's real and what's true. They're empowering everyday individuals to challenge the media elite effectively. Imagine being a moderately popular YouTuber with just 1,000 views. Odds are you're going to rack up more total watched hours than a New York Times reporter. And you can do it without the limitations imposed by traditional institutions. Today's mainstream media journalism demands not just the long slog to build up the credentials, but it also demands a rigid adherence to a meticulously crafted political narrative that can disconnect from the realities and the experience on the ground. Now is the time to seize this opportunity to make your own voice heard if you're interested. Trump's campaign demonstrated this power shift decisively. Despite being outspent 2-to-1 by Harris, his strategic use of AI-driven platforms allowed him to bypass traditional media gatekeepers, connect directly with voters. The recommendation algorithms don't care about Ivy League degrees or institutional approval. They optimize for genuine engagement, for authenticity, and for resonance with audiences. The mainstream media's claim to objective, unbiased reporting is obviously glaringly at odds with their role as ideological gatekeepers. Don't stop now. I have dozens more videos. This video is part of a playlist, which I'll post for you here so that you can go through and watch other videos that are similar, or you can watch our newest videos, and we have lots of other playlists. So keep clicking, keep watching. Click over there.